Welcome to Mysterious Goings On. We're going to get right to the show after these messages. Been there, done that, got the t-shirt, huh? Not quite Mysterious Goings On, listeners. You probably haven't got the brand new Mysterious Goings On official t-shirt. This is a quality cotton t-shirt coming in a premium unisex tee version and a women's slim fit tee version in all the sizes you could possibly need. These are great quality shirts coming in a variety of colors, including dark heather gray, black, charcoal, maroon. And on the women's t-shirt, we come in dark heather gray, black, charcoal, indigo, and midnight navy. There you go. Check them out. They are in the show notes. The link is right there. They're being sold on Bonfire. They're typically sold in batches, and they'll come at you pretty quickly. All the instructions are on the website. The link is in the show notes here or at mgopod.com. Again, show the world, well, at least show the world on Zoom, or show the world when we can finally really get out and about. Show the world that you have some mysterious goings-ons of your own by wearing our t-shirt, and help support this show. Thank you so much. The Sopranos was a blend of drama, humor, sex, and betrayal, and it is darkly comic undertones throughout. And it aired from 1999 to around 2007. It was the story of the Italian-American mobster Tony Soprano balancing his family life with his role as the leader of a criminal organization pioneering decades of genre-bending peak TV right there. And that was 20 plus years ago that this thing first debuted. Well, now it's 2021 and it's still one of the hottest shows on TV. HBO reported a 200% increase in viewers. Lockdown has something to do with that, of course. So maybe now's the time for you to watch or rewatch. But when you do that, you got to unleash your inner soprano and relive all your favorite moments with this companion guide to the award-winning television series, The Sopranos. It's all coming your way. It's called Off the Back of a Truck. It's the unofficial contraband for the Sopranos fan, and it takes you one step further into the world of Tony and his family, and it offers an Italian potluck of fresh and fun takes that any true fan could get lost in for hours. And we are so excited to have Nick Braccia here. He is the author of the book. Nick is, my gosh, he is as accomplished as Tony Soprano in so many ways. He's an award-winning writer, director, and producer. He co-created and co-executive produced the horror podcast Video Palace for Shudder, which, by the way, I'm a subscriber. Thank you very much. And he's working in a marketing agency, Campfire. He helped develop immersive narrative experiences for TV shows like Outcast, Sense8, Watchmen, The Man in the High Castle, Westworld, and The Purge. He's a member of the Producers Guild of America, and he's right here on Mysterious Goings On. Welcome, Nick.
Well, Alex, thanks for having me. I love things both mysterious and goings on. So.
The big mystery, actually, of the show is what happened to the hyphen between goings and on.
Oh.
But you know, what can I do? What can I do about it? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Nick, I got to tell you, I watched back in the day. I had HBO, and I think at that time I probably had HBO specifically to watch The Sopranos. And I mean, I loved all the stuff that kind of led up to that. I liked Goodfellas, and I liked the Scorsese movies, and I liked The Godfather, of course, all of that stuff. But The Sopranos was different. It reached me in a different way. Those other things seemed at a remove, but The Sopranos seemed to be just right here. Like these people could be the next street over. What's your relationship to the show?
Yeah, it's it's funny because I didn't watch the first season when it aired. I ended up catching up and starting, I think, in season 3. But the show was released during a real crux in my life. I was a year or two out of college. I was just starting to live on my own. I'm from the tri-state area where the show takes place. I grew up in Southern Connecticut, which I know is not Jersey, but East Coasters will know, people not in the East Coast will know, it's so small around here that the tri-state, and I know there's many tri-state areas in the country, but the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area basically works like this. Anybody who's 45 minutes to an hour outside of Manhattan by train or car, it's sort of a shared commuter culture. It's generally, but not always, affluent. And you've got distinctions between the North Jersey guys and kids, the Long Island, the Rockland and Westchester, and then, where I'm from, a little bit further north. So basically and also being a third, I guess I'm third generation Italian American immigrant, and knowing that story, it resonated in multiple ways. It really, for me, is, spoke so beautifully to and satirized what I would describe as American, and more specifically tri-state area consumerism. Some of the film you mentioned, The Godfather is the real immigrant story tragedy, but it's coming in from the very beginning, where we see Vito in Godfather 2 land at Ellis Island and get his name. And as Tony says at the beginning of The Sopranos, he feels like he's coming in at the end of this thing, and it's, for him, it's the end of the millennium, it's the end of the garbage business, but it's also, I think, the end of the immigrant family experience. So in all of those ways, and through all of those lenses, it always appealed and resonated with me.
You used a word earlier, and this is something when I read the book that, as learned about pop culture as I seem to think I am sometimes, I did not think of this word when I originally saw The Sopranos, but after reading the book, I embrace it, and that word is satire. I don't think most people think of it that way.
They don't, and it's a drama and a comedy, but most of all in there is the core idea, and this isn't from the first episode to the last episode, that as it's very difficult for all humans to change, but specifically Americans, specifically consumerist Americans, to get off that treadmill, even when a more comfortable or easier or more fulfilling life might just be on the other end of a couple of key decisions. There's incredible amounts of resistance to it, and I think that's one of the great follies of our time, and I think one of the core ideas of the show.
Yeah, and I want to get deeper into that in a moment. First, I think we should talk about how this book is constructed. First of all, I mean,
yes,
it's not just you; it's you and some pretty brilliant critics and writers and thinkers, and you all weighing in on this. And what I love about this, you do everything from talk about specific episodes to breaking down and rating all 92 murders or deaths, at least,
yes,
that occurred in this series. And I got to tell you, Nick, when I first got word of this or got wind of this book, that's what I thought it was going to be, was just that. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds fun. Okay. Oh, we'll check it out. And then I get the book, and no. It's this treatise on consumerism and these comparisons that are made that just blew me away, like comparing the Soprano crime family, and the Soprano family values with Trump family values. There's all these different very well considered positions on this. And then of course you also have, which I think is an incredible part of the book, is you have this this breakdown, or this discussion, this printed discussion between you and several others about what really happened in the last episode, which we can get to. But I wanted to just get there first with the bones of this. How did you arrive at the structure of the book? Did you initially start with let's just do the murders, or did you have this other idea? Let me know how'd that go?
Yeah, it's funny because in my day job, I came up as a copywriter and creative director, and I'm often in what I would call production. Like how is this idea that we've sold in going to come to life? And this book was an opportunity that came to me while I was working a full-time job. It happened, it's funny, in the late 90s, I was working at Simon & Schuster, which is now my publisher, and as an international sales associate for peanuts, my very first job. And I was up at a meeting at HBO one day, and I guess, it's 2021 now. It would have been in early 2019. I was up at HBO for a meeting about Watchmen. And at the time, before they moved, HBO corporate moved to Hudson Yards, they were in Bryant Park. So that's near 6th Avenue and 42nd Street in New York, right down the street from Simon & Schuster, which is up on 49th. My office was in Tribeca, and I'm like, I really don't want to go back down to the office. So I called a buddy of mine, Sam Ford, who I've known for quite a while, who works at Tiller Press, and said, hey, I'd love to finish my work and just use your internet. Can I just like camp out in your office? So he let me do that. And I had been up there before, but I, in that visit, ended up in a extended conversation with the publisher of Tiller Press, Teresa DeMasi, just by happenstance, and started riffing ideas for books for fun. They were just, I was talking to them. They were picking my brain a little bit about where I thought there were, because I am a marketer, where I thought there were opportunities. And we started talking about peak TV, and then the conversation turned to The Sopranos, and she lit up and I lit up, and we talked about The Sopranos for an hour or so. Her children had gone to school, or the same school with James Gandolfini's son, so she had been friendly with Gandolfini during that time. And we just had this great conversation. And at some point I said, there's the movie coming out, The Many Saints of Newark, because it had been announced at that point. And we just kind of left it at that. And I thought I'd left them with an interesting idea for a book, and I didn't think anything more of it. A couple months later, I guess, I get an email and says, do you want to come back up to discuss the Sopranos book? I'm like, what Sopranos book? And I riffed with them about what the book could be. And the next day, this had become real. Now, the reason I bring all that up and to tie it back to me thinking in terms of production, the timeline wasn't crazy aggressive, but it was aggressive enough that I was concerned about whether or not I could take the load of the entire book on my own. But I also thought this is potentially a once in a lifetime opportunity. I've got many close friends, some I've known for a quarter century in real life, who are very close to me and very brilliant. And in the case of like Steve Weinberg, who I consider the godfather of this book, no pun intended, was my mentor and teacher and remains a close friend. I was like, how about, why don't I basically conceive of this book as a party, and I host it, and I write it, I can write half of it or 2/3 of it or whatever, but all the pressure won't be on me, and people won't get sick of my voice because I can invite this eclectic group of a dozen people. And at first there were ideas like, oh, who are we going to get? We're going to get Anthony Scaramucci. We're going to get Michael Imperial. We had all these like crazy ideas. And then it's like, no, let me write this with people that I can reach out to, that I know there's not a lot of money involved, and make it a real, like, seriously, these are the people I would call if I was throwing an invite, if I was having a Sopranos party. Some I've known on social media and have just read their work for years, and others are people I'm very close with. So that was like, it was by design. I thought it would make it more interesting. And just from a realistic production standpoint, I could produce and edit this book as well as write it, which will provide some balance all around. So that's how, it was conceived by both design and necessity, I guess is the.
Well, I've got the hardback, and it's a handsome volume. There's great art on the cover. We'll have the cover art in the show notes, folks, at mgopod.com, along with links to where you can pick it up. But there's really nice design, I think, of the book. Now, I'm not a graphic designer, I'm a writer, but I mean, I looked at it, and when I flipped through it, when you get to the 92 deaths, there's some blood splatter on the page and stuff. There's fun stuff like that. That's really good. But it's a beautiful deal, and it's tongue in cheek too. Off the back of a truck, Unofficial Contraband for the Sopranos fan, and it's Nick Braccia and some friends of ours. So it's kind of, I like the way it's.
Yeah, I try to have a sense of humor. I try to approach everything with a sense of humor, and the show is hilarious, and the fans are hilarious. And it's like, how can we, I didn't want this tome to be too scholarly,
right?
But I also wanted to bring some heavy hitting. I wanted to write things about the show and notice things about the show that that no one's ever done before. That was really important to me because there's been so much written.
Absolutely. And you did. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'll tell you, there's another point where I had some jaw drop going on here. And I know that I'm not the only one who loved this show, but you talk about influences in previous shows. And when you're talking about the Sonny Steelgrave arc of Wise Guy, dude, I think we're about the same age. I just flipped, but there's like only a few pages of that, but I really wanted to really explore that a little deeper because
I'll send you the longer version of that essay because it got cut down. I got to go back to the original. I lost about 30 to 40% of it in edits because we had to get to like a page number. I had all this stuff about actually how the Sonny Steelgrave character informed not just Tony but also Christopher.
Yes.
But God, how good of a show is Wise Guy?
Oh my God! I mean, even when it got really weird in later seasons, right? But it still held together so well. But the whole thing, folks, if you're not a Wise Guy viewer, I believe if you get on certain platforms now, there's like whole channels devoted to it. But I think it was. On Stir, they had a channel, they still do, for just Wise Guy. And man, I was flipping through there one day and there's Sonny Steelgrave, and I am flipping out. Ray Sharkey, the late Ray Sharkey, really embodied that role so well. And I thought he was every bit as charismatic as Gandolfini was in Sopranos. So I love that. You even talk about the Rockford Files because David Chase had there's all these little Easter eggs he drops in from his previous stuff. You get into that. It's fantastic stuff. So in the time we have left, I'd like to just kind of fire a few questions at you though. What is the greatest episode? What is the one that you just say, if you're going to hang your hat on one episode, what's the one you pick?
Yep. And I mean, like everyone loves the Pine Barrens and it's beautiful. Steve Buscemi did a great job with it. And it's so funny. And Whitecaps has such tremendous acting. That's really the height of the Gandolfini, Edie Falco arc and their performances. And Steve Weinberg writes about that in his essay on method acting. But for me, it's the episode that I chose to write about in the favorite episodes chapter of the book, which is from season 5. It's the Michael Imperioli written episode Marco Polo. And it's because for me, so much of the angst and the anxiety and the anger in the show comes from keeping up with the Joneses. It comes from class distinction. In that episode, I often joke, and I make a joke about Gosford Park and Goomba Park in the essay, which was something Scott Van Doviak, who's a contributor to the book, originally said to me and told me I could borrow it. But I joke that in North Jersey and in America, it's not as clean as Downton Abbey, where you got your upstairs and you got your downstairs. It's not like that, and there's all this residual tension, and just grief and anger that comes out of it. And it comes together in this episode. For listeners, the conceit of this episode is that there's a surprise birthday party for Carmela's father, who's either turning 70 or 75. I can't remember. So they host the party in the backyard, and Tony is going to be co-host. Him and Carmela are separated at the time, but his father-in-law loves him so much. So, but at this party, you've got a real mix. You've got some, I would call them uppity Italians, more northern Italians, who kind of hold their nose up at Tony, and his mother-in-law, who just kisses their ass unapologetically. You've got the wonderful character of Tony Blandetto, the cousin of Tony Soprano, who's a really sweet guy who's trying to walk the right path. But he sees what his cousin has. He feels like the lesser Tony, and he's only able to take it for so long. And you see his cousin and his mother sitting around at this party, kind of like, must be nice to have money. There's all of this, and it's beautifully directed so that you don't, every single look, every glance that people give one another, all of the thoughts, and all of us who have been at any party
Oh yeah.
Any family party, any generational party, anyone where there's members of a family who are struggling financially versus others who are in, in the catbird seat. It's also familiar, and it's played. It's this beautiful ballet of class tension. And the crescendo is that Tony Blandetto reaches a point where he feels so bad about that his children want to spend more time with their rich cousins and less time with him. That it breaks his heart and puts him over the edge. So he then starts, committing murder for hire. That leads to his own fate. So it's for me, that's just a great episode that gets at the crux of what the show's mostly about.
Absolutely. And the whole thing of the keeping up with the Joneses too, within the confines of a crime family, is just a fascinating observation. I mean, you see a lot of it. One of my favorite arcs is the Cleaver arc.
Oh yeah.
But when there's a great episode where Sir Ben Kingsley, who riffs on him being, I don't know Sir Ben I don't know if that's him or riffing on himself or whatever, you know what I mean? But the point being that all Christopher and his friend can do is just be agog at the what is it? I forgot what they call it. The room. It's the room celebrities go, and all the brands like give you a Rolex.
Yeah, it's just the swag. It's swag. The swag.
Yeah.
Room.
And it's just like he's beguiled by this room, Sir Ben, I want that. How much is that? I wonder, and you watch it and it's painful. And Kingsley's so good because you can see it in his eyes, this revulsion a little bit, I think.
Oh yeah.
For how crass it is, but to me that was probably a little more in your face, more writ large, about the points you're making about the consumerism and the keeping up.
Yeah, I mean those guys are, and also they're hustlers. Yeah. It doesn't matter how much money they've got. They're always it doesn't matter how good Christopher's car is. It doesn't matter how good how big little Carmine's house on the Hamptons is. They are going to be crass hustlers.
Yeah. I mean, and Tony always wants a taste. Doesn't matter, like a case of wine or whatever. He always wants a taste. You got to bring him tribute or a gift or whatever all the time. That's something you see. The Godfather, they pass the tray around at the meeting, I believe. I don't know if that's the exact same thing, but people pick a ring off there and those are things. So I saw that, but I got to tell you, Nick, I just never completely put those glasses on, so to speak, when I watched it the way you've done here and the way you've illuminated this. What do you think, though? What do you think? Where does The Sopranos? I mean, it's incredible that here we are, 21 years after it first aired. Okay, after it first aired, not after it ended. It's 200% increase in views. I rewatched the last 3 years of it in March and April because I just love those last bit. But where do you think it is in the pantheon of crime programming and stuff like that? Where does it fit in your opinion?
I mean, from a television perspective, I think it's the greatest. And I mean, it's a different kind of achievement unfolding over, 7 years and being very, very novelistic in its detail and in its tone shifts versus The Godfather, which is a real saga or family epic, which is told over even though it's so wonderful, it's not, I'm not counting part 3. It's, we're talking about 6 hours of TV versus 86. Yeah. But I do think that The Sopranos changed, it changed everything around crime drama. It sort of ended it with respect to, I mean, how many hit mob Italian American TV shows and movies have there been? Not since it came out, not many. What we're seeing is a proliferation of really interesting international stuff. The gangster genre, you've got your stuff like Narcos. There was a wonderful pair of movies out of Brazil called, is that the Elite Squad movies? I think those were really, really good. You've got Gomorrah, in the Marco Bellocchio movie about the Sicilian mob, Traitor, which was just out last year, which I highly recommend. It's on Stars right now. So you're seeing, it's almost like the crime genre has expanded into international, multilingual, into that much more dispersed, not disorganized, but rather what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, it's just decentralized. I feel
Okay.
like the idea of the crime family has been heavily decentralized. So I almost feel like, when Tony Soprano says, feel like I'm coming in at the end of this thing, it's the millennium, it's the garbage business, it's the immigrant experience, and it's the Italian mob movie genre.
It is. And speaking of the end of this thing, we got to go there before we go. Folks, if you don't know how the series ends, you might want to plug your ears or just go watch the whole series and then come back to this moment. but the ending that was so controversial, and I'll never forget being in my basement watching it, and it just goes to black. And I did like most people. I like, what the no, he can't, no, because I just thought the cable went out.
Yeah.
Of course now. So there's this great discussion at the end about everybody asking, do you think Tony lived? Do you think he died? What happened? All this stuff. And it's the perspectives are, to me, just beautiful perspectives, and they're real well thought out, well considered, down to the diagram of the restroom where the gun might have been.
I went in there. And took some pictures at Holston's to figure out what would actually be possible.
Did you have some onion rings while you were there?
I did have some onion rings while I was there. I went during Sopranos Con. I did a little pilgrimage over there, and it's quite a nice, fun little ice cream parlor and restaurant. The in that chapter, that chapter was originally about 5 times. That conversation was 5 times longer than what's in the book. Also, it was really, really long and quite deep.
Well, do you want to say what you think about?
Oh, sure. I believe that in Mark DiLello, in his essay on he's both in the Mark's in the conversation, along with Fred Gardeffi, Hannah McGill from Scotland, Scott Vandoviak, Phil Dice Nugent, Andy Cambria. We're all having that chat, but Mark makes a real case filmically through editing and cinematography around themes that appear in the show for Tony being definitively killed in that last scene. I tend to agree, and I think even if you look at the episode and the episodes before it, there's enough clues there that one of the things I like to note is that it starts with the Vanilla Fudge's song, "You Keep Me Hanging On," and it's almost has this funerary organ like opening to it, and that cuts out before the lyrics start. But if the lyrics kept going, they would say, "Set me free, why don't you, babe?" Which is what I think Tony wants at that point. But Bobby's gone. That was his fault. Silvio's gone. His allies are few. His there's this one thing I read about that got cut was there's a song, and AJ and his girlfriend Rhiannon, that's the Fleetwood Mac song. Rhiannon are watching this like goofy video on TV, but the song's called Lifeboat Party, and I'm like, that's what the core 4 of the Sopranos family are at that episode. They're in a lifeboat. They don't have anywhere to go. Yeah. And I feel like when Tony goes to see Junior, and he has this kind of Ozymandias moment, where he says, "You and my dad, you ran North Jersey," and Junior doesn't give a shit. He was like, "Oh, we did." He's got full blown dementia, and at that moment, Tony kind of realizes everything he's done is kind of for nothing, and that's the scene right before he walks in, and then you get this. In Holston's, there's so many interesting things going on. Yeah. If you look at the names of the songs, they reference his sins of the past. There's also 2 big murals in the back, and one's got like a football player on it. That's not the real mural that's in Holston's. They put that there. And it's a little bit of This Is Your Life, because Tony obviously, never had the makings of a varsity athlete, but he was a high school football player. That's how he knew Davey Scatino. So it's all surrounding him and swimming around him. So I think that, and he's made his decision. We see the circular onion rings. We see the circles of Meadows' tires spinning. Yeah. We've got the Journey song saying, it goes on and on and on and on. He's either dead spiritually and has committed after his whole Kevin Finnerty situation, where he had a chance to choose to walk a different path and didn't. He's either riding the circles of the onion rings for the rest of his days, or he's getting it in that moment. I believe he catches it in that moment and that he's killed, but it's almost irrelevant because he's got no one and is spiritually dead at that point anyway. There's no turning back. So that's, I guess I do think he's dead, but I also think it kind of doesn't matter because he's dead.
I think I agree. Although I had not, of course, thought through all of the wonderful insights you just made there. I had two things on that though. This was written in the book. It was like someone says, I'm sorry, I don't remember who says, but they say, yeah, and it goes to black and there's no sound because you don't hear it when it happens. Or something like that. You're
exactly.
You're shot. You're dead. You're gone. This is Tony. Boom. He's gone. But I wanted to ask you this, and this may be just a really dumb question, but
it's okay.
What does it mean though that Meadow is still outside? I mean, he can see her from where he's seated, but she's not actually. Did she come in before it happens? She sit down.
She didn't sit down. She's just walked. He's looking up to see her come in.
Right. That's right. And then, but does that mean something that she's not seated with the family, or is that way too much reaching?
I just think that it means his eyes are on the door, not where they should be. He's exposed. He's exposed because he still has his eyes on the core four of the family. And I think it was it was a great technique to create suspense.
Yeah.
But
was the parking job and all that? Yeah.
Yeah, it's also a distract. It's somewhere for him to keep his eyes.
And it was misdirection for us too, though. I think as viewers,
definitely.
The constant with the car, you can't parallel park, and you're just like you said, and you're tense, and you're watching it, But that's not really where your eyes should be technically, but that's where they're showing you.
Yeah.
I just a couple more things real quick is Melfi.
Yes.
What's your thoughts on her wrapping it up? What do you think she is with this? Any thoughts on her?
I tend to agree with insight that Steve Weinberg had, or his perspective on this, which is that dramatically after season 2, there's not a lot for Melfi to do after the stuff with the arc with Tony and his mom concludes. But what I think is still interesting periodically, and there are some good moments with Melfi, like when she's attacked and she wants to sick Tony on the guy but doesn't. But I love how we see that not only is she not able to make real progress with Tony, but she makes him a more effective boss and a more effective killer. There's a chilling moment where she tries to make an excuse for Christopher after the Cleaver situation, after Tony understands that the subtext of Cleaver was about Christopher's frustrations with Tony around Adriana and Adriana's demise. And he says to Melfi, "I've learned too much about the subconscious in here." And that's the moment, I think, where he decides that, Christopher's, not long for this world. It's going to be, how and when it happens is a matter of circumstance. But it's at that moment that there isn't going to be any coming back for Christopher. And it's because of things that Tony's learned sitting in that chair.
Yeah, and that observation creeped me out. So it's such a good observation.
Very chilling.
Oh my God. Yeah, and is that why? By the way, you made a good point about, is that Melfi didn't have a hell of a lot to do because unfortunately Olivia died. Nancy Marchand died. That's why she's out. But is that why they brought Peter Bogdanovich in?
I don't know why they brought him in, aside from maybe just having him around. I like Bogsy. I think he's good. I think he's good on the show. I think he's probably playing himself. But it's funny. I almost evoked him early on, because with all creative stuff, and like with the situation of this book, with me giving an opportunity, a timeline, what I want to, a chance to do this with my friends, I think of the Bogdanovich movie Targets a lot, where Roger Corman said, and this isn't going to be exactly right, but Roger Corman basically said, yeah, you got, I'm making this up, $20,000 a week. Boris Karloff owes me 2 days of work.
2 days of work
for free. Yeah. And it's got to be about something ripped from the headlines. Go. And then Bogdanovich had to figure it out. Like I'm a big fan of the like real creative production tends to be, all right, what's in the fridge that isn't expired? What can you make?
Yeah.
It's just the realities of it. I'm more comfortable writing from scratch than in production, but getting stuff done goes to the way that Bogdanovich approached that movie and how Roger Corman pushed people to get things done. Here's the ingredients, figure out the proportions.
Did you by any chance listen to the Ben Mankiewicz podcast with Peter Bogdanovich?
No,
it's like you got to, I mean, if you like this guy, I mean, you've got, it's like 7 to 10 episodes. It's in depth, but what's great is they include some of Bogdanovich's recordings when he interviewed like John Wayne and I mean this and Howard Hawks, and I mean this is from, I'm a film nut, obviously. I couldn't believe it. Anyway, I'm sorry to get off track on that.
Okay. I love getting off track.
This is great, isn't it? I mean, it's just great. It's just funny. I can say Peter Bogdanovich to someone who doesn't go, huh? Anyway, I love his work too, and I totally agree. And he talks a lot about targets in one episode too. So that story is very cool. But as we're wrapping there, I just wanted to kind of follow that up. But I think this is a marvelous book. I wish we had more time, but how do we get this here book? Where do you find it?
It's wherever fine books are sold. It's on they've got a site on. I have a page on Simon & Schuster that shows several retailers. It's not just it's bit.ly/Sopranos book, but you can find it any indie bookstore, Barnes and Nobles, Amazon. They're giving it pretty good distribution. I was expecting the movie to come out in 2 months, during which there was going to be another promotional push, but for the second time the movie's been delayed. It's now coming out September 24th. Okay. The Many Saints of Newark. So I'll be around pushing this thing for the next 10 months. I'd love to park a truck in Little Italy and give away a bunch of copies, but I'm trying to figure out how to swing that.
That's a great marketing idea.
Pick it up, leave a review. People let me know what they think. Listen, this was a bucket list project for me. I love The Sopranos. I love writing. I love the people that I collaborated with. And for me, more than anything, it's an example of like, in a month I'll be 45 years old. We're not you get opportunities. There's things that you want to do. Right. Do them. It was fun. It was difficult, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. And I learned. I loved the show beforehand. I had watched the whole thing through maybe three or four times. Like what I love talking about specifically is the Ralph Cifaretto essay that I wrote in the Death chapter. Because the Death chapter is the only chapter I wrote completely by myself. Those 92 deaths. And I had watched that episode 4 or 5 times. Then I watched it a 6th time, and it unlocked things that David Chase, I believe, was doing in there that had never occurred to me before. So the show is really a gift that keeps on giving. And there's just so much to enjoy. It's so rich. If I go back and watch it again, I'm absolutely positive I could write another book and never say the same thing twice.
Holy cow.
Well, that might be pushing it, but
so you might want to try. I mean, I'm telling you, folks, you got to get this book. It's great. Even if you're not in The Sopranos, you probably know somebody who is. It's never too early to shop for Christmas. There'll be links in the show notes. I mean, it's as tasty as a gabagool with extra peppers. Gabagool with an extra peppers, and you got to get that. But check the show notes at mgopod.com for all this. Nick Braccia, I could go on with you. I think it's just brilliant. I've got to get on your podcast, your Video Palace pod.
The Video Palace was fiction. That was a 10 episode fiction podcast on Shudder. It's also a book that came out in October called Video Palace in Search of the Eyeless Man. That one I mostly edited and wrote some. It's billed as being written by Maynard Wills, but Maynard Wills is a fictional character that we created in the Video Palace world. It's this. I did it with my creative partner Mike Manello, who is one of the guys that made the Blair Witch Project in a long time. I've been working with Mike on and off for almost a decade. So Video Palace is kind of I describe it as like Stranger Things meets Serial. Kind of podcast. Check it out on Shudder, though. I think you'll dig it. And then the subsequent book was a project we put together this year, pulling in a bunch of great horror writers to give their spin on our mythos.
There was a special on Shudder about various horror scenes, or was it right? My gosh, I'm blanking on this. I'm wondering if you were in it. Did you appear in a documentary, or was there...
I have not. I watch a lot of them, and I watched Cursed, which is terrific about movies where bad things happen. There is one where Cursed is great. There's some other stuff that I feel like one of our Video Palace collaborators, Graham Skipper, who's an actor, director, and writer, appeared in, and Graham and I actually look quite a bit alike. I shaved today because usually both he and I have a beard. So it might have been him.
Okay, yeah,
but,
maybe seriously,
he's a brother from another mother. Really, wonderful guy. What was I going? Oh, so and then I do this MMA podcast because I'm a UFC nut. But I'd love to. So I'm not hosting anything pop culture centric or writer centric right now. But I'm I'm happy to chat anytime. I obviously love talking about this stuff.
Sounds great. It sounds great. Well, I'm not gonna lose your number then. Hang out.
Happy to be on whenever. And I'll see if I can dig up both. Because I actually haven't looked at them in probably a year and a half. I'll look at the extended or original cut of the Wise Guy essay, which was it's definitely more raw and a little sprawling. And I'll also see if I can dig up the original or the long version of the last chapter. Those may get released in some other format someday, so just keep them on the DL.
Oh, absolutely. But, I would be honored.
I haven't actually shared either of those things with anybody yet. So I'll pull those out. So long as I could find them in a Google Doc somewhere.
Well, I was gonna say, it's the first guy who's mentioned Sonny Steelgrave apparently to you lately.
Oh yeah,
right?
I love Sonny. So I caught on to Wise Guy late. Weinberg got me into that also, and it's just like that performance. It's funny. I was just watching an early episode of Barney Miller where Ray Sharkey shows up. And then The Idolmaker, this terrific movie he's in with Peter Gallagher.
Yeah.
What a talent. Gone, had some demons, gone way too soon.
Yeah.
But geez, and the point I try to make in the book is that, Gandolfini's performance is singular, but Ray Sharkey was the first truly emotionally vulnerable mob boss. Michael Corleone, there were times when he was certainly hurt, but we never saw Michael shaken. We saw him angry.
Yeah.
I think that what Ray Sharkey did was really special, and that nothing had happened quite like that before.
Not at all. So, folks, you've got plenty of stuff here to dig into here. Not the least of which, again, though, get into Wise Guy, the first season, Nights in White Satin. By the way, there's a second season. You got a lot of actors you may recognize, but anyway, there's a lot of them who got their start on that show, and it's fantastic. But not the least of which, get off the back of a truck, Unofficial Contraband for the Sopranos fan, Nick Braccia, and some friends of ours. Nick, you've honored us so much. Thanks for appearing on Mysterious Goings On.
I'm humbled. Thank you so much for having me, Alex. It's a pleasure talking. We could go on for 4 or 5 hours if you had the time, and I didn't have a bunch of copywriting to do.
I think that's about right, my brother. Hey, all right. Well, we'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Thanks, Alex.
Hey, folks, we're going to take a quick break in the episode. I probably mentioned here and there that I have another podcast called PR After Hours. PR After Hours is basically an after-hours virtual lounge where public relations, marketing, and general business professionals get together and have a laid-back conversation about what they do and how we can help each other. It's great tips if you're running a business or if you're part of a PR or marketing team or you own your own business. I guarantee you'll learn a lot of stuff. It's a twice weekly show. We've been doing it for a year now. Very proud of it, and you can get it right here on Anchor FM or pretty much wherever you get quality podcasts. But if you want to learn more information about PR After Hours, please visit prafterhours.com. I hope you'll check it out. It's a little bit different vibe, obviously, than Mysterious Goings On, but also I think if you're not careful, you might learn something and have a laugh or two as well. Thanks so much. Again, that's PR After Hours on Anchor FM. Thanks so much for listening to Mysterious Goings On. Don't forget we have a complete archive of all of our interviews, monologues, updates, live readings, dead readings. All of that stuff is available at mgopod.com. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us so you never miss an episode. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the usual suspects. Please join us there. Again, don't forget, mgopod.com also has links where to find me on social media and how to get in touch in case you want to be a guest here on the show. Well, I think it's time that I move on for this week, but until next time, keep reading.